All right, we are live. Hello and welcome everybody to our latest Lodgify webinar. My name is Mikkel and I'm a content marketing specialist here at Lodgify. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is very top of mind for everybody who either has or is looking into starting a vacation rental business. And that's obviously how to build guest loyalty and secure repeat bookings. Now, to help me explore this topic today, I have with me here Arthur Colker, the founder and CEO of StayFi, as well as Kerri Gibson, the co-founder of vacation rental business Chalets Hygge. So both Arthur and Kerri have great insights to share with us today. So first of all, just thank you both so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Now I'll give you guys both a chance to introduce yourselves here in a moment, but first I wanted to just quickly go over the webinar structure and some housekeeping just to make sure everybody knows what to expect. So as I mentioned, we'll meet our speakers here momentarily, after which I'll give an introduction to Lodgify for anyone who's not familiar with us yet. And then that's when we'll get into the real meat of the webinar. Arthur has a great presentation for us with tips on using technology and marketing campaigns to drive repeat bookings. And then we'll get the vacation rental owner perspective from Kerri. I have some questions for her on her experience using strategies and incentives to build guest loyalty. And then finally, we'll end the webinar with a Q&A session to give you guys all a chance to ask any questions you guys have, any topics you want us to go over that we haven't mentioned yet. Now for housekeeping, for any questions you guys have, keep in mind we cannot hear you, but we can see the chat. So if you have any questions now, or if anything occurs to you throughout the webinar, please go ahead and include them in the chat on the right side of the screen, and we'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can within our time. Now, if you can't hear us, please go ahead and see if your speaker is muted or if your audio is down, and then just turn it up, please. It happens to the best of us. Hopefully that'll fix any issues we have. And then to answer a question I've already seen several times in the chat, yes, the webinar will be recorded. We'll be sending it out to everyone registered tomorrow. So if you have to hop off early for some reason and want to catch the rest of it later, or you want to revisit any of the topics we go over today, the webinar recording will be available to do that. Now, Arthur and Kerri, I'm sure everybody would love to hear a little bit more about your guys' background and what you do. If you want to introduce yourselves, maybe starting with Arthur.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Arthur Colker, the founder of StayFi. We started in 2018 to help short-term rental operators kind of control their own destiny. So we saw a big issue where a lot of short-term rental companies, while they were having great success on OTAs like Airbnb and Vrbo, they were really struggling to build out their own brand and ability to get direct bookings to their own website. So we developed a suite of technology from data collection to email marketing to help every short-term rental operator make sure that every guest that stays with them knows who they are, the benefits of booking direct, and knows how to come back and stay there and have amazing stays again and again.
Amazing. Thank you, Arthur. Thanks for being with us here today. And now, Kerri.
Hi, my name is Kerri Gibson. I am in Quebec, Canada, in a region called the Eastern Townships, about an hour and a half outside of Montreal. Along with my life and business partner, Philip, we co-founded Chalets Hygge 7 years ago, and we are a boutique for rental company, as in we are owner-operators. We don't do any professional property management, and so our model is that we source properties that are in need of a lot of renovation and love, and we renovate them completely in and out, turn them into short-term rentals, and then we manage them as a short-term rental. So we are end-to-end. So we are scaling slowly and intentionally, and our repeat guests are a huge part of that strategy.
Great. Thank you, Kerri. This is actually Kerri's second webinar with us. So we love having you, and thank you for coming back again.
Absolutely.
All right. So as I mentioned, I'm from Lodgify. And just for anyone who's not aware of what Lodgify does yet, we are an all-in-one vacation rental software that empowers vacation rental owners and property managers to do everything from creating a bookable website that accepts direct bookings to managing all your reservations and guest communications in one centralized platform. We also sync listings and calendars across external channels such as Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, and Google Vacation Rentals. We also integrate with more than 30 third-party apps, including StayFi, as you'll see there on the screen. And these apps range across a wide array of categories, ranging from short-term rental insurance to smart home automation. So if you're looking for a specific feature that we ourselves don't provide, chances are we integrate with a third-party app that does. Now I want to quickly touch on a couple of Lodgify features that we've recently updated, starting with Lodgify dynamic pricing. We first released this tool not too long ago, back in February. So if you're not familiar with it yet, it is our in-house dynamic pricing tool. It works by using a sophisticated algorithm to automatically optimize and update your rate to help you stay competitive and stay booked. And since we released this a couple months ago, we've been soliciting user feedback to try and improve it as much as we can. Our most recent update involves configuring occupancy charges. You can now charge extra for additional guests per night. But the best part of it is that it's super easy to use. You can turn it on and off with just a single click. And most importantly, it results in an estimated 20% increase in revenue. So it definitely pays off. If you haven't checked it yet, I recommend doing so. And we include a link on the page there. And then finally, AI Assistant. So we first released our AI Assistant back in September. And for those of you who don't know, this is our AI-powered messaging tool that helps you generate quick, accurate, and personalized responses to guest messages with just a single click, as well as easily translate AI-generated responses. Now we've got such good feedback on our AI assistant that we've recently updated it to expand it out of our unified inbox and into reservations messaging as well. So now you can take advantage of the same great benefits, but within reservations messaging. And again, we've gotten great feedback on this update, including a LinkedIn post here on the screen from a Lodgify customer who recently tried it for the first time. She says, I clicked and in 3 seconds, a beautifully crafted reply appeared, and she was left totally speechless. So great to hear that feedback. And again, if you're a Lodgify customer and haven't tried it yet, I recommend logging in and doing so. And then just an FYI for anyone who hasn't tried Lodgify yet, we include a button here at the bottom of the screen that says try Lodgify for free. Go ahead and click that to get a free 7-day trial of Lodgify and test out this feature and just see how the product works in general. All right, that is it from me. Now I'm going to hand it over to Arthur for tips on using technology and marketing campaigns to drive repeat bookings. Arthur, I'll stop sharing and you can go ahead and share your slides.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
It's loading, but I think we will in a second. Now we can.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody. And like I mentioned before, my name is Arthur Colker, founder and CEO of StayFi. Founded in 2019 to help short-term rental companies of all sizes achieve independence from OTAs. So while we always believe, OTAs are probably going to be an important part of your booking strategy, we think everyone should be able to cultivate and build their own brand. And that's why we love working with partners like Lodgify, because they give you that first essential starting point, which is an amazing book direct website where folks can come see your brand, understand why you're not Airbnb or Vrbo, and book with a trusted short-term rental operator, whether you're an owner-operator or a property manager. And we do this in a variety of ways, and I'll go into some detail in particular around how to leverage email marketing. But I'll just explain kind of at a high level what StayFi does and also how we integrate with Lodgify. So kind of the most important thing, we believe when it comes to your book direct strategy is harnessing the power of all the guests that have stayed with you and loved the experience. It's particularly hard in this industry when guests have been so used to booking on OTAs like Airbnb and Vrbo to get them to make the leap to book direct, especially if they've never experienced your brand or hospitality before. So we're a big believer in the best starting place is with individuals who have already stayed with you. And the first way to do that is to collect data from all of those guests. So with StayFi, we have a Wi-Fi marketing tool that helps you collect data not just from the booker, but everybody staying in the short-term rental property. It's something you've experienced at an airport, a coffee shop, a hotel. Every guest in a property that uses StayFi, when they join the Wi-Fi, they'll see this thing called a captive portal with your branding on it, where they have to input information like name, email, phone number to get on the Wi-Fi. So that's really step one, is collecting guest data, not just from the booker, but everyone who's staying in the rental property. Then we go to the next level and help you source data from other places. So with our Lodgify integration, we also go through all your historical reservations with in Lodgify, as well as future ones. And any of those that have real emails associated, we screen for those and bring those in as well. So we're centralizing all your guest data, whether it's from the Wi-Fi, your website, from your PMS, Lodgify, all into one place. So then you can also start doing marketing. So within StayFi, we also have email and text marketing tools built for short-term rentals. So now that you're collecting that data from all these different sources, it's all in one place for you to do effective campaigns that are proven to drive repeat bookings direct again and again. And I'll go through in detail a lot of what those campaigns can be, different strategies for different types of operators, depending on where you are, etc., and show you some real life examples. And then outside of that, which I'm not going to really talk about today, is we also have some great Wi-Fi related benefits because we are a Wi-Fi tool. So we also do occupancy alerting integrated with Lodgify. So we'll actually tell you if there are more guests in your property that are booked for your current reservation. And we also can let you know if the internet's offline. But at the end of the day, I'll show you just a variety of tools and methods to make sure, while someone may have booked with you originally as an Airbnb guest or a Vrbo guest, everybody leaves knowing your brand and knowing why it's important and valuable to come back and book with you directly for their next stay. So that over time, your percentage of bookings that come directly to you can go from 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way to 40, 50, 60% plus. We see those numbers with our customers. And not only that, increase your overall occupancy rate, because you can start leveraging this loyal audience to fill unbooked nights, which is where we can unlock a lot of additional revenue for your business. Because obviously it's nice to transition from less OTA bookings to more direct bookings because you'll save on fees, but it's even better if you're able to fill nights that would have otherwise gone unbooked if you only were using third-party channels. So what are some general reasons why people are talking about book direct, or why do operators think direct bookings are valuable? Number one is obviously higher revenue. So the average fee that guests and operators are paying OTAs, booking Vrbo, Airbnb, etc., is somewhere between 15 and 18%. And whether you pay it or the guest pays it, really all coming out of the same chunk of money. So obviously, you'll have better margins and become more profitable if more of your bookings are direct. And then, of course, I think even more important is improve your occupancy rate. We've seen occupancy rates in North America be pretty static this year, not really growing, not really shrinking. And so there's a lot of opportunity for most operators to increase that, especially if you operate in a seasonal market, right, where maybe you're always booked in the summer or the winter, but shoulder seasons are weaker, right? So developing that loyal audience that you can go to again and again is going to help you market those times of the years that might be a little harder for you to fill. Obviously, you can also have way more control with direct bookings. You can control the cancellation policy, refunds, guest complaints, all of those things which maybe you've had issues with certain third-party channels. It really puts the control back into your hands. It's a differentiator if you are a property manager. You can imagine if there's two property managers in a town and one has a successful guest-facing brand, is driving tons of direct bookings, they're going to be performing better than somebody who's just listing on third-party channels. So sometimes I think people undercount this guest-facing brand. Also going to have huge benefits on homeowner retention and acquisition because it's a differentiator against all the operators that are just doing OTA bookings, or mostly just getting their bookings from third-party channels. And finally, we see a lot of larger operators, because they control the whole booking flow for direct bookings, they're doing other types of upsells in that process, things like travel insurance, where they're making a lot of revenue, as opposed to, Airbnb or Vrbo or Booking.com is selling that insurance and making that additional revenue, where it really could be the operator when it's a direct booking. Just to cover kind of what the integration with Lodgify does, if you're curious, there's kind of like three main things this will do if you're an existing Lodgify customer. We'll import all your properties into StayFi, which just makes setup a breeze. We do that occupancy alerting feature that I mentioned. And then finally, it's importing any marketable data. So we screen out all those proxy emails and fake Airbnb emails, and we only go after the real emails in Lodgify. And what's really cool is we have a special partnership where when you do that import, if you have less than 200 contacts, our email marketing tool is totally free. So you can get started, connect Lodgify, and build a campaign to, first 150 guest contacts, and you're not paying anything until you cross over that 200 threshold. So you can really, explore the email tool, set up automation, see what you like before you have to pay anything as your list grows further. Now, when it comes to book direct or having a successful direct booking strategy, we're not going to talk about so much, but you really have to be delivering a great experience for guests, because obviously no one's going to want to rebook you if they don't have a great stay. So that's kind of the obvious basics. And then beyond that, you need to start thinking about how can I build a compelling guest-facing brand that they're going to trust and want to book with. Number one is definitely the website. That's why Lodgify is fantastic, because they have some of the best direct booking websites offered by any property management software. I know they have multiple templates, styles, tons of great examples, and you can go look at Kerri's website. I think someone from Lodgify put the link in, so definitely go explore that, right? So everything you need to have a great, mobile-friendly website that actually converts and represents your brand well. Second is, this is really where StayFi can help, is it's going to take multiple branded touch points to get guests to realize that you're not a quote unquote Airbnb, right? So we hear that, Airbnb is like Kleenex. People that book on Vrbo call it an Airbnb, right? That's just like common language today. But sadly, if you're delivering this exceptional experience to guests, you don't want them leaving thinking that Airbnb did all that work when it was you, right? So having multiple touch points where your brand is in front of the guests is vital, whether that's in the Wi-Fi logging experience, like you see here, where you can brand it with your brand, to fridge magnets, to a digital guest guidebook, to branded items in the home. It's going to take more than one impression for those guests kind of nail that into their head that you're not Airbnb, that you're your own independent brand, and that there are benefits, obviously, to coming back and booking directly. Not always even financial. They can be just extras on top of the stay or late or early checkout, things like that. I think a lot of people run to price, but it's not always price that can, help people realize that direct booking is valuable for both sides. And then within StayFi, we have a lot of interesting ways to engage guests beyond just the Wi-Fi with unique recommendations. And we have some cool upsell partners that are built into our platforms. Two of them, Viator and the HostCo, are examples where you can not only curate lists of activities or third-party services or your own services for guests, but then you can actually make a rev share if guests end up purchasing any of those things. So maybe you have a favorite, tour or activity in your destination. It's typically on Viator or the HostCo. So not only can you recommend that through StayFi's tools, you can actually make a rev share as well when guests book those. So helping you kind of differentiate again as an operator who is highly familiar with the places you operate in, but then also be able to benefit financially when guests take you up on those amazing experiences that are actually going to define, or what they are going to find most memorable about the stay is usually the experiences, if more than often just the accommodations, right?
Yes.
Here's just a little look of what that looks like within StayFi. So this is where guests are taken after they log into the Wi-Fi. Is this page on the left, which is called the home page. You can think of it as a link tree for your vacation rentals. So with StayFi, you'll have a unique one for each listing, and that's where you can put things like shop amenities, which is the HostCo, or shop tours and activities, which would lead you to Viator. You would also make a rev share. And through our partner, the HostCo, you can also sell things like early check-in, late checkout, other stay alterations, which is a great way not only to give a better experience to guests, but also make some additional revenues from those types of sales. Yeah, so now I'm going to start going into like the actual weeds of how to do email marketing successfully, or different examples of how we see people approach that. but it's pretty, the basics are pretty obvious. You want to first collect data, and I'll talk about different ways to do that. Then consistently market to your list. This is an important one. And there are some ways to leverage automations, AI, to make this less of a time suck than you might think upfront of like, how am I going to have time to come up with a great, newsletter every month? Do you really need to do that? And I'll talk about some tips and tricks to get started that it's not going to be a huge burden. And then finally, you just want to consistently offer value, not always money, but top things to do in the destinations, extras included in the booking, other ways to make sure that you're differentiating yourself from those OTAs so that guests want to come back to you as opposed to going back into a third-party channel where they see all your competitors again. Building the guest list. So this is step number one. Like I mentioned before, Lodgify is a great place to start with that data. So when you connect, Lodgify will not only pull in historical data, but anytime a new real email appears in Lodgify, we'll also import that automatically into our email tool. So all the data from there will be available. We don't have it mentioned here, but of course you can also upload your own lists. I usually recommend starting email marketing with some friendly emails, let's say. So like friends, families, lists of, people stayed with you in the past that you wrote down manually. Just because anytime you start email marketing reputation is really important. So you want to start with a high open rate, high click-through rate. That way Gmail, which is what most people are using, knows that you're not sending spam messaging. So you don't want to start, upload a list of 10,000 guests from 10 years ago and blast them all in email. If you do that, a lot of people will mark it as junk or unsubscribe because they'll forget who you are. And then your email reputation could be damaged and your emails will start going into the junk folder. So you want to start, with a good, solid, smaller list where guests or individuals are going to open those emails, click, so you can maintain a good email reputation. And then obviously for us, we love if you layer on the Wi-Fi collection piece, just because you'll collect 5 to 10 times more data when you're going after everybody in a property. So, if you have homes that sleep 5, 10, 15 people, obviously the list is going to grow a lot faster if you're going after all the adults in those homes to market to them directly. Websites are another great place to get data, especially if you're driving a decent amount of website traffic. So adding, a pop-up kind of to collect emails, or a little, box in the bottom right of the website where you're collecting emails, those kind of forms, that can be really helpful with a give-get. With our email tool, that's super easy to add to any website, especially that pop-up where it's like, hey, subscribe and we'll shoot you a 10% off coupon for your stay. That's really easy to add to a website, and we can show you how to do that as well. And finally, social media. This is kind of the one that I see underutilized the most for email collection. But I see as I follow a lot of hosts and property managers, I see them do all sorts of engaging content, especially like kind of FOMO-ish posts, things like, hey, we only have one home left for Coachella, like put in your email if you're interested in booking here. There's all sorts of interesting ways to engage your audience, especially when it comes to tactically filling nights, which we're going to talk a lot about when it comes to email marketing. So before you kind of kick off this whole marketing journey, you might want to ask yourself, like, what am I trying to accomplish? And this goes back to understanding where you're operating and who your guests are. So for instance, are you in a seasonal destination where filling certain times of the year is very easy, but you need marketing to help fill those shoulder months? Are you in a drive-to destination where if I send an email a week before someone canceled, right? Thanksgiving, I saw this for one of our customers. Someone canceled a big Thanksgiving reservation, but she was in Missouri. She knows that 99% of her, list are drive-to folks where something three days away is easy to get somebody to book and fill. Or are you a destination like, in Hawaii, where it typically takes more than a week of planning, right, to book a trip there? So understanding kind of, where do you need more bookings, like what time of year, and then what types of guests can help define, where you should be focusing your email and text marketing strategy. Another great thing just to consider is homeowner acquisition if you are a property manager. I've seen a lot of folks have success with email marketing for new homeowners. They may have lead collection pages on their website, and they'll include those homeowners or potential homeowners in their monthly newsletter to really demonstrate how they are going above and beyond to market properties beyond just typically listing on third-party channels. Email and text are the main channels within StayFi. The other one I'm not going to talk about at all is digital marketing, so search engine marketing and digital advertising through like Facebook, TikTok, etc. I'd say search engine marketing is definitely for property managers of a certain size before you really can spend effectively on Google. So I typically see people have success when they have 50, 100 plus properties, starting to invest in search engine marketing, typically using a professional agency to help them. Email and SMS definitely have much lower barriers to entry, as in I've seen many people with just one listing have incredible success with these two channels, just because, if you have a list of 50 people and you operate one listing, let's say someone cancels next weekend, they send an email out to all their past guests saying like, hey, we had a cancellation, so we can offer a special discount for this weekend. They can get a booking right away, right? So email and SMS work for people with just one listing. Some other forms of digital marketing can work very well, typically just on the higher end of the property management spectrum. I'll talk a little bit about SMS now, just because most of the rest of the content will be email related. SMS marketing is a very powerful tool because the open rate and click-through rate are much, much higher than email marketing. So SMS averages 99% open and read rate because it's getting delivered obviously right to your phone. StayFi has a very simple one-way text marketing tool. So it's not designed to be for two-way communication. So for instance, if someone texts back, there's an autoresponder you set up at StayFi that will tell them your preferred method of communicating with guests. In StayFi's text tool, you can, for instance, trigger a text message when the guest logs into the Wi-Fi. You can use it to collect 5-star reviews, and you can send one-off campaigns to everyone who's subscribed. SMS typically has much lower opt-in rates, so like 20 or 30% as opposed to like 80% plus for email. So smaller list, but much more highly engaged audience because everyone typically at least sees the content you're sending. That's the really powerful channel when it comes to filling, I say, last minute availability. So that's one of the big advantages if you're a smaller operator, sub 10 listings, is you pretty much know your calendar, what's available, what the typical kind of length of time before a booking is. And before you go to the OTAs and start cutting prices, which is the behavior I see a lot of folks doing, is, okay, we have this, we're typically booked every weekend, but it's 30 days out and this hasn't booked yet. I'm going to start, cutting prices on Airbnb and Vrbo. Go to your audience first and say, hey, we have, this great availability at one of our properties, X days out. Here's a deal because you're one of our loyal audience members where you can come and book that directly with us before you go to the OTA and start cutting prices in like maybe a panic, right? So leaning on SMS can be great ways to target specific availability, specific dates with specific offers, and you'll get a very high response rate to fill those. And then email is what I'll dedicate the rest of this. And of course, if you have questions about text, feel free to add those to the chat and we can get to them at the end. So email, there's lots of different types of email content you can send. And I'll talk about the most common ones we see and which ones are most effective. Where I tell everybody to start, whether they use Wi-Fi or not, so this is a little bit of a misnomer, I guess, Wi-Fi welcome series, but it could be really any welcome series, so newsletter sign up below as well, is creating a series of emails using our automation tool, or just about any other email tool will also have something similar, like in MailChimp, they have drip campaigns and automations as well. Basically a series of emails that everybody gets when they sign up to your list over a course of, could be months, even years. So the Wi-Fi welcome series is a specific version of this in StayFi where guest logs into Wi-Fi, receives an email, then maybe in 10 days receives another email, etc. This is always the best way to start because early on, when your list is smaller, it may not be worth your time or someone in your team's time to craft a unique newsletter every other week because you only have a few hundred people in your list, right? But if you spend one day or a few hours crafting a series of 5 or 10 emails over 6 months, you can make sure that everyone who enrolls in your list will get a series of messages from you that contain some value and information over a series of time, and that they'll stay engaged with your content. And that's always the best way to start out, is to automate, just so you're not so dependent on sending new content on a regular basis when maybe you're just not sure if you're going to have time to be able to do that. Newsletter, you can do the exact same thing. And then some other cool types of automations is booking anniversary automations. So if you take a look at your reservation data and know what your typical booking window is, let's say it's 2 months, you can send an email through StayFi that gets sent 10 months after they last stayed with you and let them know, hey, just a reminder, you stayed with us last year. If you want to come to X destination again, it's cheaper if you come and book directly with us. And here are some wonderful properties that we manage. That's another one that performs really well and is an easy one-time automation to set up in our tool, where you're just basing it, 10 months after you collected the data, essentially. And then post-departure, that can be in your Wi-Fi welcome series if you're using our Wi-Fi tool, to just those emails that get sent after the stay, encouraging them to book direct, and then, of course, giving them reasons or insights around why they should come back to your destination. I talked about this marketing versus one time, so I'll just quickly say again, start with automations, then move on to one time. I typically see people start having success with one-time campaigns once they have between 500 and 1,000 emails in their list. So that's when I would start recommending, hey, we're going to start sending a monthly newsletter. I'll show you an example in a second, even if it's very simple. The other thing I'll just mention when it comes to, let's say you're setting up your first automation in StayFi or MailChimp, and you're like, there's all these templates, I don't know what to design, I don't know, we don't have a logo, right? All of those things that you may think are blocking you from doing email marketing. Text emails, so just plain text emails written from your first person perspective in a MailChimp or in a StayFi email tool, those actually perform the same or better than highly branded or complex templates that you see professional companies put together. And there's a few reasons why that is. Obviously, one, if you're a smaller operator, that can capture your voice in a way that maybe be a little inauthentic if you went out and paid some designer some incredible amount of money to design a very fancy brand. The other thing is text emails, so just like one written from your voice. That's typically going to go into the main inbox of Gmail, which is where 60+% of your emails are going to go. Most people's Gmail has a promotions inbox as well. When you have a highly designed email or email with photos, they're much more likely to put in the promotions inbox, which has a much lower open rate than the main Gmail inbox. So in plain text email, that could be as simple as, hey, John, hey, first name, I saw you stayed with us at X property 3 months ago. Just so you know, we have these homes available coming up this weekend. And if you're interested, you can just email me back. And that way they'll just email you right back. They think maybe you wrote this email spontaneously on Gmail, right? That's kind of the feeling that we're going for. Those are going to have much higher response rates and have much higher open rates and are much faster and easier to write. So don't be afraid that design is going to hamper you from being successful, because plain text emails can perform the same, if not better, as something with a fancy design. Here's just an example of kind of like what an email can look like in StayFi. This is for Juniper Holiday and Home. What they've done is they created one template with these different sections, and they just reuse these again and again. And you'll see that in the examples coming up. So once you are ready to make the leap to design, they had a designer go in quickly. I think they hired someone on Upwork. They designed this template for them just because they wanted that custom like Juniper leaf motif you see at the top, things like that. And then once they had these sections made, they just reused, and you'll see a few more example sections up ahead. And for them, they really lean into photos and design. And the way that they lead off their newsletter is they always have like an anchor blog post. So they have this anchor blog post that's like the lead of the journal. And then they have these sections which they rotate, but commitment to like service and one-of-a-kind vacations. They always integrate property management service into their emails because they have that mixed audience of owners and past guests. And then they lean heavy into their concierge service. So they do this personal chef catering, adventure local events. And that's really how they differentiate from OTAs. Like, hey, if you book direct through us, we're going to help you set up all of these things that are going to create a wonderful experience. And they're not saying like booking is 15% cheaper if you go direct, right? So price is the easy one, but maybe not the reason why companies like Juniper are winning. More the differentiated service level that's harder to communicate on an OTA. Here's an example of just kind of like what an automation email looks like in StayFi. This type of tool will be very similar in any email marketing tool. So simply a person enters this segment, so they subscribe through the Wi-Fi, triggers the welcome email, which is what you see on the left here. And if you go on the right here, you'll see there's a wait 5 days, and then send another email that's more book again oriented. So this first email, when someone logs into the Wi-Fi, it's very much oriented towards helping them have a great stay right now, and with a very small section on the end about dreaming about your next vacation. Nobody wants to be like sold to, right? So you have to provide value first. So here also they use our tool to make they only have one template, but it inserts all of these fields dynamically. So it says, welcome to the Dakota. That's because they say welcome to property name. You can have links to this property again. You can have links to your guidebook. All of these links in the email can be dynamic. So you can make one welcome email that covers all properties, which makes your life a lot easier. Here, after they give the welcome, a lot of people will also talk about we're here for you, so how to contact us during the stay. That's another big one. You have to remember that in the Wi-Fi case, this is the first time you're communicating with non-booking guests. So they probably may not have heard about your concierge services or how to contact you. We know that bookers sometimes are not the best at sharing information with the other people staying there, right? So don't assume that the booker has shared all this valuable information or these other services with, the 8 other people in the home. They might have just, told them like, here's the door code and here's, how you get on the Wi-Fi, and not shared all these other amenities and services. So concierge services, because maybe the other people here didn't know this was available and they want to go peruse the offerings during the stay. And then of course your next vacation, 5 days later they send in more, how was your stay, here are more reasons to stay with us again and why you should book directly. So the next email is a little more sales oriented, and they know their average length of stay is 3 to 5 days, so they send that 5 days after the guest logs into the Wi-Fi. And here's an example of a monthly newsletter. You can see here, they're taking all those same elements that their designer made one master template and reusing them. And the new one here is this like 2x2 kind of property display, which is pretty nice. And again, similar themes to what we talked about before, showing the blog posts, talking about their service level, property management service, cool properties, concierge, book again, pretty basic. And they just rinse and repeat this formula and have pretty high engagement by just kind of mainly focus on the new topic in the lead section where they kind of lead with a blog post. Yep. So kind of just summarizing, I'd say, discount on the next day is the simplest and the easiest to offer a promo code in email and text. But think a little bit outside the box. So at the bottom here, we have complimentary activities, early check-in, mid-stay cleans. Like, what else can you do to differentiate that's not just price? Really think about that to give the guest a compelling total experience. But obviously, price can be very helpful. Typically, we see people's prices are lower on their website than a OTA anyways, but you can really reinforce that in the messaging as well. Book X nights, get one free. That's an offer we see sometimes. Late checkout, early check-in. All of those reasons to come back to you and not to the OTA, you can build into your campaigns. Overall, kind of like, how do you measure success, right? It can be challenging, especially at the beginning, or if you're not that well versed in things like Google Analytics. That's why promo codes are a great place to kind of start, because if you only send promo codes in an email or a text, someone uses it, that was definitely the cause for it. I say, for smaller operators, lean into that last minute availability or openings in your calendar. I think one of the worst things you can do is send an email like, come stay with us for July 4th, and you have no availability for July 4th, right? That can be actually dissatisfactory for people that click through the email. So just make sure you're checking your calendar against the content you're sending. But obviously, with Lodgify, you're going to know, how many bookings you're getting directly. And over time, if you're sending emails consistently, you'll see that percentage increase. I think the other thing to keep in mind is a lot of tools like Google Analytics, they're very like last click oriented, but we know that the booking journey is not just click and book, right? So even an analytics tool might not tell you the source of this booking. Overall, we see people's direct bookings increase just because they may open the email on the phone and then a week later go on the computer to book it, right? So analytics tools are decent, but just looking at your overall book direct percentage and really tying back certain bookings to certain campaigns if you're doing, pushing certain dates or times, and having that one-on-one conversation with guests can be a great way to get started. Sweet. That is the end of this presentation. Just a reminder for Lodgify users, there's kind of two benefits that we have here. One is you can get started with email marketing for free, up to 200 contacts, and that's for unlimited sends. That data can be from Lodgify when you connect it, or just a list you upload yourself. And then if you want to add our email marketing solution beyond 200 contacts, or set up the Wi-Fi piece, you'll get 50% off the first 3 months of those tools when you use Lodgify promo code at sign up. And you can sign up at stayfi.com. Also on our stayfi.com/demo page, you can book a one-on-one demo or attend a weekly webinar. So we have all those options if you want to learn more about the tool, get your questions answered. I know we had some folks not in the US, learn about how to set up StayFi in the UK or Indonesia or wherever you are in the world. It's possible. It's a little different outside the US, but we can work with anybody no matter where they are in the world.
Amazing. Thank you, Arthur. I think those are exactly the kinds of tips that people are looking for. So that was great. Just a reminder, if you have any questions based on Arthur's presentation, please put them in the chat and we'll try and get to them at the end. I will share my screen again. All right, so that brings us to the vacation rental owner's perspective with questions for Kerri to really get her experience in using strategies and incentives to build guest loyalty.
I just want to say, first of all, Arthur, that was amazing. We're pretty far along in our repeat guest journey, but I'm over here still scribbling notes. Like the value that you just provided and some insights you gave are absolutely amazing. So thank you.
Thanks, Kerri.
That brings us actually to our first question. You say you're far along in your journey. What percentage of your bookings are return stays at this point?
Return guest stays, repeat guest stays is actually one of the KPIs that we track pretty regularly. And we started doing that in 2021, pre-post COVID, which actually was our highest year of return guests when we came in at 40%. But obviously that was COVID. We had a lot of travel restrictions, especially here in Canada. So we had, a lot of local destination vacations. And so after that, in 2022 and 2023, we more settled into the 20% range of our reservations coming from repeat guests, which is still pretty strong when you look at it. That's the high end of which a STR can expect to get repeat guests. But then we were getting ready for this webinar and we were running numbers on Q1 for 2024. And 24% of our Q1 reservations came from repeat guests. And in addition, 6% of our Q1 reservations came from referrals from guests. So 30% of our Q1 reservations came from prior guests in some way, shape, or form. And for us, we see the repeat guests as a higher KPI than even, the star reviews. 5 stars is amazing. It's great, but it really is a 5-star plus guest when they come, because vacation is such an important part of our culture. And so when they choose to spend their time and their discretionary spend to come back because you've earned that trust and confidence, that really is next level as a KPI for letting you know that you're really hitting your avatar, your guest market in a right way, and that you're creating the experience that they want to come back, spend their time, spend their money. For me, I think it's a really important KPI that's not talked about very often in the industry, that depending on your market could be a really important measurement.
Yeah, I know that's so true. And that's an amazing percentage. I'm curious, are you doing anything to like seek referrals or to promote referrals?
So with referrals, I mean, the biggest thing we have, and one of the benefits of repeat booking, I find, is brand loyalty. Um, we don't do a whole lot specifically. I mean, we offer a 10% discount for a referral, but that's pretty much all we do because I think we have built such brand loyalty and that when our guests come, we're gaining their trust. We've created a relationship with them and we've met their expectation before they even arrive and then post arrival, that when they go out, they're talking about us, right? Providing the social proof that we need for our brand. They're talking to us about family, their friends, their colleagues on social media. And so all of that is building the brand reputation for you. I mean, because what better opportunity is there to say, like, oh my goodness, like you're going to the Eastern Townships, you want to go to Quebec, you have to stay with Kerri and Philip. And our names are very as much a part of our brand as Chalets Hygge. We have guests that we've actually never met in person that refer to us that like, oh, you have to stay with Kerri and Philip. Like we've been friends with them for 20 years. And so in today's society where we need proof to have trust before we even arrive somewhere, that's the biggest way to build it.
That's amazing. It really just comes down to word of mouth.
It does. I mean, referrals, you hear it, but when you're actually providing it, and people are always proud to tell you, hey, so and so referred me. Like, and even our repeat guests will say, hey, I referred my colleague. They're coming to stay. Here's her name. So it's almost a source of pride for them to be able to help their family and friends like have this amazing vacation and amazing getaway. They take a bit of pride in that as well. So don't ever underestimate the power of doing that next level thing with each guest that's going to take them back to talk about it, no matter how small it is.
Yeah, it comes down to creating that really memorable stay that they want other people to have as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask some
Right.
questions?
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's so interesting. Being we have some customers in Quebec, and I'm always curious about and then same in Europe, we see this challenge of bilingual communication.
Hmm.
Do you segment guests by language, or are you communicating in two languages or one language? Kind of how do you approach that?
That is such a good question. And as an Anglophone in Quebec, I didn't learn to speak French until I moved here in 2015. Um, it is very important in a bilingual market. So we actually communicate in both and we segment our guests by language. We currently use MailChimp for our email and our marketing. And so we do use a tag to identify who is who so that when it goes out, they get it in the correct language. And of course, all of our website, all of our digital assets are in both languages. But it's an interesting question. So for us, when we go out and look for a software vendor, it has to be someone that provides both languages and not just, hey, turn on Google Translate or something like that, because it's always not as authentic of a
Mhm.
conversion. So it is. And it's one challenge we do find with a lot of American based software technologies is they're only in English. And that just doesn't work in Canada and in Europe.
Totally. And then curious also like understanding where your guests are coming from. Like I
Hmm.
would assume you're mostly like a drive-to destination, but kind of curious, is there any data you collect on guests to understand of kind of like how they found you or where they're coming from?
That's an amazing question. And I was actually going to touch on the fact that, yes, we are a drive to destination. So we are a tourism destination. We were named one of the top 52 places to visit in the world by New York Times in 2023. And we're drive to from Montreal, Toronto, New York City, Massachusetts, Boston, New Jersey. So we have a huge drive to market, which is also an opportunity to drive repeat guests. So we really focus on that, knowing they're coming in. Yes, we know where they're coming from. When they come in on Lodgify, we have their address and everything that's collected on that. We know their language that they're speaking. And so from Lodgify, everything flows out to let us know where they're coming from, what language we need to communicate with them in. And then we gather information too about what kind of guests they're going to be, so that we can, as part of that guest journey, you were talking about the email drip campaigns. Before they even come, we know what kind of pre-communications to send them, because building trust with them starts before they even step foot inside of the door. Making that experience memorable from the first time they hit your website till they walk out the door. It's in everything you do at that moment that you never even knew that they were looking at you going forward. So we are able to do a lot of last minute stays. So we do know who our Quebec customers are, who our New York customers are. And so we are able to do a lot of, hey, last minute weekend reservation, and then send those out. We also get a lot of success on that with social, putting it out on Instagram. As a, hey, come back, because often that's another place where you can reconnect with your repeat guests.
And then in terms of like seasonality, I'm kind of curious, do you feel like you're year round have consistent demand, or is it pretty variable in this location?
We're pretty four season, except for what we fondly refer to as mud season, which is right now when the snow melts before, we're full on with all of the sunshine. And then in November, after the leaves fall, right before the holidays pick up, those are our slower seasons. But we're pretty four season. So one of the things that repeat guests help us do is driving our higher occupancy rates. So we know when they're going to come, we know how long they're going to stay. So we're better able to plan for exactly what you're talking about before, Arthur, like knowing how far in advance people come, where they're going to book, and plan each season. Once we know what those booking windows are and the types of guests that come, then we're able to segment and go after those guests specifically in our email marketing that have signed up. That we have those one-on-one relationships. Those also tend to be the guests, repeat guests. They're higher value guests. So they book further in advance at higher rates to make sure they're getting the property that they want. And they also book 2 times further out in advance, right? So it helps you know your velocity and what your occupancy is going to look like in those busier season or in those shoulder seasons, and helps you do some planning. So, I mean, all the way around from an ADR perspective, from an occupancy rate perspective, and driving more predictable revenues, they're quite great. You want to balance. Like I said, we had 30% of our Q1 reservations come in some way, shape, or form from prior guests. We still want to keep new guests coming in, right? So to say you're 100% return guests for our business model wouldn't be great, because if you were to drop off or you were to lose some of them, that's a big hit to revenue. So so we keep that balance coming in by bringing in the new guests, and then hopefully starting to turn them over and into repeat guests. But as travel opens up more and more, you have people that are doing more than just drive to destination travel. So it's just, you know, a constant turn of why people are repeat guests, staying up to date with those on travel trends, and then being able to segment them inside of your StayFi or your MailChimp so that you can target them to come back. We found those to be very, very successful.
I've also seen some of the top things operators want to offer are like upsells and other activities. And I saw on your website you have some great resources in terms of like, I think maybe like a spa treatments or in-home massage even.
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious, kind of when and how do you introduce upsells, especially to like guests that booked on an OTA? And how has that helped you kind of differentiate and build an independent, brand people want to come back to?
Certainly. So look at our chalets as where people start and end their days. Like they're coming here for a whole entire experience, and our properties are not necessarily the full experience. Like they're coming to do activities during the day. We're a big outdoor location, so whether it's summer, fall, winter. So we our marketing brands are based off of the chalets, seasonal activities, and local businesses. So you'll see us
Mhm.
talk about all of those things on our website and our social and our email newsletters. And that right there builds a ton of credibility with people that aren't even guests yet, that may have signed up, on the pop up on our website of like, okay, they're really focused on helping me create the right vacation, and as opposed to just giving me a place to stay and then they disappear. So that proof of building the trust also comes in offering them upsells, right? Some people might feel like it feels icky, but it really doesn't, because when you think about like they're coming to a place maybe they've never been before, there's so much to do. When you can help them pinpoint and focus on something and give them a resource to start with, that's that right there makes them feel more comfortable right away, because we all know going on vacation can be overwhelming with the plethora of choices. So even if you're just kickstarting their ideas, and if it comes recommended from someone they trust, they're more likely to actually want to participate in those activities or visit those restaurants.
And now I want to visit. I'm in New York City, so I'm like
Oh my
sucking
God,
all
you're
the
not
place.
far. You're a drive
Yes,
to for us.
exactly. I'm sold.
But yeah, no, it's so all about the upsells, it's communicating it in a way that they don't feel sold to. Like the letter we send out is create your perfect UGA experience, and here are the ways that you can do it. And we talk about the Nordic spas that are available. We talk about the hikes, and we give our recommendations, and we talk about the restaurants. And so we kind of lead them to thinking about, and if you want to, here's what's available for you to purchase as an upsell, or equipment to have for you at the chalet, or meals to have at the chalet. So, so yeah, so doing it in a way that's helping them curate their experience and not being sold as,
Yeah,
the word upsell, right? Because we're
yeah.
helping them curate their experience. I know that's what we call them, but that's how we approach it. And that's how we choose them. We only add on things. They're going to take their experience to the next level. And that's what makes them repeatable guests. Like, on our repeatable guests, we know the ones who are foodies. And when they come, they want to try out a new restaurant. And we have that and we say, okay, here's a restaurant we don't think you've been to before. Here's what it's good for, da, 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 right? And they don't even have to think about it in advance. But you can get super, super customizable with repeat guests, which just makes that bond that much stronger. And they're going to keep going out and they're going to keep talking about it more and more and more, to the point where people are talking to you like, okay, I got to forget. I have to go.
I have one more question. I know I've like taken over the question and answer here, but
No, it's great. These are
I'm
amazing questions.
I'm curious because I hear this so many from successful operators where people are like banging down their door for you to manage their properties. And it
Hmm.
feels like you've intentionally not done that. And
Yes.
my sense is like that's almost like preserve the kind of unique curation of your branding. So just wondering kind of if that's come up and kind of like what your thought process around that was and maybe why you decided not to go the management route.
Certainly. When we first started doing this, we actually didn't know that it was going to become Chalets Hygge when I started doing this. And so as I started putting some chalets on the market, people would reach out and ask us if we wanted to property manage. And at the time, I was saying no, because I didn't feel that I knew enough about the industry at the time and what I was doing. And then as we continued to grow and we were just curating this experience, I wanted to protect the brand, because I'm very particular about what is in our chalets and how the guest feels when they walk into them. And I would rather put my energy into listening to our guests and what they want than battling with homeowners about the need to replace sheets and pillows, and this look just is not on brand and it's time to repaint. And so when I can be completely in charge of that, I can continue to elevate that guest experience, because one thing I don't want them to do is them come in and it's amazing property to begin with, and then 5 years later, it's looking a little worn down and it's not exactly the same experience they had before, because the upkeep on the property isn't happening. And for us, that's just part of our brand. We replace and refresh and update. In fact, I've got 3 chalets that are about to be completely painted in downtime in April. Um, on the inside, just because it's been a couple of years and they're looking worn. So yeah, it was an intentional decision. um And unless something changes, I don't intend to do that, just again for brand protection and also for protecting my guest experience.
So
That makes a lot of sense. And that actually kind of brings me to one of the questions I had for you. Do you guys have a couple more minutes? I know we're at the hour, but I do have a couple more questions for you, Kerri.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, awesome. You spoke to this one already. Okay, so you obviously, it's really important to you to be in control of your brand and create these really amazing experiences for your guests. And you talked about activity recommendations and upsells, but has technology played any other roles in how you create that guest experience?
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. In complete transparency, before Chalets Hygge, I did work in tech for a software company. I was a product manager and general manager, and so I fully believe in technology. I love technology, but for us as a small business, it's me, my partner, and the only other full time we have is the girl who manages our chalet operations. So we have some part time people that work for us as well. But the only way that we can provide this amazing guest experiences is with technology, because if we didn't have technology to help automate, to take away some of these tasks that previously we had to do manually, we wouldn't have the time to dedicate to guests and curating that experience for them. And when I say curating, I don't mean every single guest gets a personal email. Like, we start with a broad level email, and then we can drill down in based off of their questions and responses that they get. So, for example, things that used to take forever, of course, was just sending emails before there was a lot of automation. Now there's the tools like StayFi and Lodgify where you can set, hey, 3 weeks before check-in, a week before check-in. But also what it provides is the delegation of effort. So before, I was always attached to like my email and my text and my WhatsApp, because guests might communicate in various of ways. So now there's technologies where they all come in, no matter what type of communication, into one application, and then it goes to many people. So instead of just being on my phone, my email, it also shows up on Shauna and Philip's phone as a text or a WhatsApp or an email. And any of us can communicate right away in there instead of me having to constantly check for the different dings and buzzes. I can't tell you how much of a time save that has been on streamlining communication. And then just in the ongoing communication and touch points, the ability to create those email communications, those social media touch points, all of that is impossible to do without technology. Arthur was saying you absolutely can go in and just create a basic email and send it out. And that is good, but that takes a lot of time. So when you have the templates like what he showed with Juniper and you have a structure, um, then it's easy to create beautiful ongoing communication with guests that takes less and less times, but then keeps them connected. We do a monthly newsletter, even though we're at about 1,500 on our email list right now, just because we just really started putting effort there to grow that. But a monthly email that tells, we do a chalet spotlight, we're talking about a renovation room, but then an activity that's going on that month in the townships, and then something about a local business. So we're always creating a FOMO with them. Like, oh, I'm missing out on doing this activity. Oh, I want to go eat at this new restaurant or this new boutique that just opened. So yeah, so it's constantly creating reminders of why they love the region so much. Hey, the wine route is opening up. Did you know opening weekend, there's lots of live bands at the wineries and opportunities to purchase picnics on site, so constant creation of FOMO and after checkout touch points.
I love it. These are great tips. Okay, I think we'll do one more question. I think incentives is something that's come up several times in the chat, so maybe we can touch on that. And I know you said you don't offer incentives for referrals specifically, but have you ever tried incentivizing repeat stays, maybe when you were getting started? And I don't know, what kind of experience have you had with that?
Actually, if I said that, I meant to say that. We do offer incentives for both return guests
Okay.
and for referral guests. And that's a very personal decision on what to do. It can really depend on your market and what your goals are. The reasons that we choose to do it is because number one, it makes our return guests feel valued and important. Like they trust us with their money, with their vacation time, two very precious resources they have. And so we want them to know that we value that trust. And for us, especially if you're talking about a drive to market, they also, when they come, have the opportunity to look at, we have amazing accommodations around here. So to even take away the idea of, hey, I'm going to check, some of the chalets or the resorts down the road, I already get 10% off. I know they create an amazing experience. I'm just going straight there and I'm booking. Mm. Also, it gives them, we find our guests love to be able to say to people on referrals, oh my gosh, when they're talking about, yes, you have to go stay at Chalets Hygge with Kerri and Phil. Oh, and I can get you 10% off. Like they love being able to give that to their friends. And so then it also just takes the decision point for people who might be coming for the first time or have come before and stayed with someone else of like, oh, well, I got a referral and I get something off. So yeah, why wouldn't I just go here? But the incentive only goes so far if you haven't built the trust and the confidence and created a connection, right? That incentive is just the cherry on top. You have to make them proud and eager to share their experience with their friends to be able to say, hey, you have to go here. And by the way, so
For sure, yeah, it's the whole package, not just
yes,
the discount, which might not, even be the most important thing to most people. But
I
also
would
being able
say
to
for
say,
sorry, Mikhail. I would
no,
say for
no,
the
go for it.
majority of our guests, the 10% off is not the reason that they come. In fact, some of them don't even put it in, and I have to say, "Hey, you forgot your 10% discount or whatever." And they're like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Mm, So it's not the reason they come, but we do have some that like we know it does make a difference because we have some get return guests, a few of them, they're retirees and budget is more important when they're making decisions and they tend to come in shoulder and off season, which we love because it helps us fill our calendar then. And that 10% is super important to them, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so it just depends on the guest. It can or it can't matter, just knowing your guests. But I know
Mhm.
one stat that I was gonna give that I didn't before, just to is when I was talking about our 30% reservations or our 24% return guests, I did a quick calculation on the lifetime value of our top 5 guests. And keep it, we've been open since 2018 renting, but the lifetime value of our top 5 guests is over $100,000. And they've been a combination of over 9 times each, right? So it's really creating a very long sustaining relationship, not even just the second guest, but we have guests that already have their 10th visit booked. They've stayed 9 times, right? And so it does, when we're talking that it drives revenue, it increases ADR, it increases occupancy, it really, really does. That's like $100,000 going forward for the next 5 years that I can have a lot of confidence in, that I know that we're going to have some level of return guests that are continue to provide that consistency and that predictability for us.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. And really speaks to the fact that it is worthwhile to put these systems in place and to create those
Mhm.
memorable guest experiences. So if you're ever wondering, oh, is this worthwhile? That shows it absolutely is, right?
It is, and it takes time to build the processes and the systems to support the guest experience you're buying. But honestly, the investment of time to build them is very, very, very worth it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think that's probably a great place to end this. We're already 10 past the hour. So again, I want to say thank you guys so much for being here with us. It was really great to hear from you guys. And to everyone who had questions in the chat that we didn't get to, representatives from StayFi and Lodgify have been answering them. But if there are any that didn't get an answer, we'll make sure we address them in our blog post recap tomorrow, which again, we will be sending out tomorrow along with the webinar recording. So you can watch again if you'd like. And yeah, thank you to everyone for attending. And thank you, Arthur and Kerri, so much. This was
Thank
really,
you.
really
I just
great.
want
Hopefully,
to
keep
say,
inviting
Michelle,
Kerri back. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. I do want to say that people should also, if they have specific questions on it, please reach out to me. People are like, are you always sure you want to say that? But seriously, I love to get emails or DMs, like helping the experiences I've learned on how to build and do this. I did it very much from the ground up by, just figuring it out. I love helping other hosts. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me either with any questions you may have.
Oh, that's so sweet. We'll be sure to include your information in the blog post then.
Okay, great.
yeah, I added my email to the chat. So if anyone has any
I'll
questions,
put mine in there too.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you both. I'm sure everyone very much appreciates these tips. So.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you, guys.
Well, thank you both.
Thanks,
thank you, everybody.
guys.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.